You're listening to the Wired for Impact podcast. All right, I'm here with Derek Drake today. Derek, welcome to the call.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. Came across your stuff online, was inspired about what you were doing in the world of hydroponics. And
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, with so much, there's a disturbing trend, in my opinion anyway, of consolidation in all types of industry, but in the food industry as well. And it's really cool to see local independent food producers, no pun intended, but sprouting up everywhere. And
Mhm.
you're one such story. And not to mention your backstory and how you got into it, which is kind of cool too. So let's get into that. For those
Mhm.
that don't know about your journey, share us how you got into hydroponics.
I think it all started with the pandemic. I was working at a university here in Chicago, wearing a suit and tie every day to work. The pandemic hit. I worked in operations, and there was nothing for me to direct in in the operations, and so they laid us all off. And I'm one of those people that always thinks that everything happens for a reason. So I try to look for the lesson in every situation. And this lesson was I'd been wanting to start my own business and do something. I've worked in hospitality and the food industry for decades, and so I knew I wanted to do something with food. But I'm also, one of those do-gooder type people, so I always have to feel, like it has to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I wanted to do something with food. I knew I wanted to do something that impacts the community. And initially, Brad, my partner and I, we were thinking of doing some sort of food truck idea. When I was in graduate school, I did a business plan for a breakfast concept, and that was like a food truck. But during the pandemic, I kind of went down this rabbit hole of tiny homes, and I love the idea and the concept of repurposing shipping containers and building something beautiful out of it, and building
Mm-hmm.
something meaningful and useful. And so I started thinking, all right, well, I want to marry the concept of food truck and tiny homes because I live here in Chicago. I want people to be able to come in even when it's, below zero outside and get access to food. And so that sent me down this rabbit hole of looking for people that could manufacture shipping containers and turn them into something. And then I was like, well, I can put them in local communities where that farm would produce for that community, or that business, food truck would produce for that community. And then it spun into a whole bunch of other different ideas. And then I happened upon this company out of Boston called Freight Farms, and they manufacture shipping container farms. And it was, I like to say, it was like the ancestors tapped me on the shoulders and was like,
Mm.
that's it, dude. That's it right there. And so I talked to Brad, and I was like, I think I want to become a farmer. He thought I lost my mind. Uh, we're not farmers.
Right.
We worked in the food industry, but we're not farmers. And so, but it was what I wanted to do, and I felt like it was what my soul's purpose was. Came here to do, and so we went and we started the process. It took us forever and ever to get funding because we had the nerve to start a business in the middle of a pandemic. Actually, at the very beginning of a pandemic,
Mm.
because we started this business in April of 2020.
Oh, geez. A couple of weeks in.
So it's like,
Yeah.
shit, if you're going to do it, go big, right?
Right.
So we started this business in April of 2020. And so we went to 25 different banks, told us no when we went to get funding. They love the idea of, local production and being able to grow 365 and not be encumbered by the weather, and the fact that we also wanted to make an impact on the community. They loved the concept, they loved the idea, but we were in a pandemic and they didn't know what the hell was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, in their eyes, considered a startup, even though the company that manufactures the farms have been around for a while. And but yeah, 25 banks told us no. They all told us no. We had one bank say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty in how the universe works, because, I always say the universe always spins in my direction. I just need to be ready when it does.
Mm-hmm.
The second no that we got reached out to us like 6 months later and was like, I have a colleague that works for another bank. They may be more willing to work with a startup. We really think that you guys got something good going on over there. And he connected us to one of his colleagues at another bank, and that was our one yes.
Hmm. I love the resilience, the entrepreneurial resilience. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and there's so many lessons. Before we get into all the hydroponics and all that, I just
Yeah,
I love how you went for it and you found that divine nudge, if you want to call it that,
yeah,
and here you are, which is awesome.
yeah. It took 16, 18 months,
Mm,
that whole
mm.
process initially of between when we started and when the farm actually landed, it was about 18 months. So it's a lot.
Isn't it? You were saying how you believe that things happen for a reason. Isn't it interesting how what for many people was maybe the most difficult thing, which is totally understandable. It's not taking anything away from that, but for you, it turned out to be, the right push. Do you think
Yeah.
that, what is it about that? Why is it that we humans sometimes wait? You had the dream, you had it felt inspired. Like, why do we wait for that? I don't. It's just a
I
thing that
think
I.
because we get wrapped up in the everyday. And when you get wrapped up in the everyday, you lose sight of the future, I think. And
Mhm,
and you lose when you lose sight of the future, you lose sight of what's important right now
mhm.
because the future doesn't exist.
Well, the other thing that's interesting too is your journey. Like you were saying, like how difficult was that?
My grandmother passed away during this time, and she left me the house that I grew up in Fort Heights. And so I felt an obligation to make sure that I did what I said I was going to do.
Mm,
And in order for that to happen, I had to take all those no's and learn the lesson from each and every one of them and get better the next time. And then when
mm,
that no came, I got better for the next time. And then when that no came, I got better for the next time. And so by the time that one yes came around, I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew exactly why I was doing it. And I knew exactly what I wanted out of it.
mm,
And it was to impact my community and also to establish generational wealth for my family. And
mm,
even if it's not like millions and millions of dollars, it's still something that I worked my ass off for, that I
mhm,
then pass down to my kids, and that they can then do whatever they want to do with it if they want to. But I wanted to give them that option. I wanted to create that access, not just for my kids, but for the kids that I grew up around.
mhm.
My mom still lives in that community. I have friends that still live in that community. And so that's really what kept me moving.
Tell me about your grandmother. It sounds like she was a positive inspiration for you.
You don't even know, man. It was this woman. I have a picture of her that I every single day I wake up, I come down the stairs, I say good morning to that picture. I say good morning to her.
Mm,
And every single morning it makes me smile because I am not I would not be who I am if it were not for what she did for me. She raised me and she gave me these little nuggets throughout my life that I live my life by. And one of those things is you get what you want, but you lose what you got.
mm,
And what that means is there's a sacrifice to every single thing.
mm,
Everything comes with a sacrifice. So you lose what you got, but you get what you want.
mm,
And because you can't get what you want and keep the things that you have, because you need to make room for the things that you want.
mm,
And another thing she told me that I live by, and this is another thing that really kept me going and not accepting those no's as a definitive answer, is you can live in hell as long as you know that it's temporary.
hmm. Just keep on going.
Everything is temporary. And
Hmm.
as soon as that switch hits, you're like, this is temporary. It changes everything.
Mm. Love that. I love that. So let's get into the hydroponics space here. So you got a container shipped to
Mhm.
you. Why hydroponics? Why did you get into uh, plants?
'Cause I do believe, again, this is because of the pandemic, everybody became concerned about where their food was coming from. You had people lysoling their produce and just doing ridiculous things.
Hmm.
And when it comes to the food, the things that we put into our body, we shouldn't be concerned about that. But and then when you start thinking about the number of hands that touch your food in traditional farming and how much land it takes to do traditional farming, how much water it takes to do traditional farming, and what you are destroying in order to do traditional farming, I knew that going inside is what I wanted to do.
Mm,
And hydroponics in this situation, in the setup that we have, it allows for me to get almost 3 acres of produce in 320 square feet.
That to me is so fascinating because we tend to think that you need the acreage to
Mhm,
produce, and I'm seeing this trend growing a little bit with the produce
mhm.
container boxes and whatnot. It's crazy to me. So how
Yeah.
many, like, what is, first of all, what are you producing, and
Mhm.
like how many does that feed in a period of time?
Oof. I mean, the good thing is that I'll start with the second question. It's year round because we're not encumbered by the weather. So I can grow 365 days a year. And in terms of how much that can feed, once we're on our growth cycle, every week I can have 900 heads of lettuce coming out every single
Amazing.
week.
Wow.
And it's a very quick turnaround, which is another reason why what I love about controlled environment agriculture is that you can replicate nature and give the plants exactly what they need to be their best selves.
Yeah.
And you're still understanding and learning about the plant life cycle and about nutrient deficiencies and learning about what goes into the food because that is what's coming into you and going to give you what you need. And so it's the nerd in me, love that part of it. And then the fact that I don't have to put my hands in dirt. And so that spoke to me, and it is really truly, I think, the future. It going inside and going up vertically is really where the future is when it comes to food production.
Hmm.
The challenge that we face in hydroponics is the relationship that we have to traditional farmers. We are a farming country. I'm from the Midwest, so Illinois is one of the biggest corn producers. And so that is battling that old school mentality of I got to get out there and get my hands dirty, got to be on my tractor doing all it to get past that to really think how do we secure a future when it comes to food production because we can't sustain what we've been doing.
Mm.
And to me, controlled environment agriculture answers that question of how do you secure your future of food production? You take it inside to where the outside elements don't impact what you're growing, and you can always grow. And you
Mm.
don't get like a flood or a heavy rain and it completely destroys your crop. And you have to start all over again. And you can't start over to the next season because, that's how traditional farming works. And so that's what really spoke to me is the impact, the quickness of in the turnaround. When we started farming, we planted our first seed March 1st of 2021. And by April 15th, we had our first harvest going out the door.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, one of the reasons why I got into microgreens was
Mhm,
for that very reason. I tried to do the traditional, putting something in dirt outside, and it took me months to get
mhm.
a handful of soggy beans. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is not. There's no way I'm going to be able to do anything with this. And the turnaround time was so appealing to me because I figured I'm going to fail at this, so I want to fail fast. I want to figure
Mhm.
out my lessons quickly, and yeah, within 30 days, I'm producing
Yeah.
platefuls and platefuls and platefuls of nutritious, incredibly good for you greens. I was like, this is
Mhm.
fascinating. That's the other thing too. Psychologically, you eat these things. I saw something online the other day that said, I think it was with chickens, but this could be applied to hydroponics as well. It's like it's it's the beginning of a conspiracy theorist because when you try your own produced microgreens or hydroponics and you a taste how good they are,
Mhm.
b your body goes, oh thank you, like I've been needing these nutrients and this is so delicious. You start to wonder like, well, how come aren't we, why are we not getting that in the grocery stores? And the conspiracy, the tinfoil hat stuff starts to come into play. But
But it's not a conspiracy. I mean, when our food system is controlled by like two, three different companies.
that's the conspiracy to me, though. I'm like that's where you start to realize the difference between your locally grown stuff
Yeah.
versus what we get. And you go, why are we not getting the higher nutritional, the fresher, the better
Mhm.
tasting stuff? You know what I mean? Like, so not to say that, feeding millions of people isn't an easy thing. I'm sure it's not. But anyway, I just, my body felt different when I ate
It
my
does.
own locally organically grown produce,
And
you
that's
know?
because psychologically as well, you know what you put into it. So there is a sense of peace. And
Yes.
how we think about our food is what our food will do for us.
Hmm.
And when that sets in that I did this, I grew it, I know what I put into it to get it, it does it, you can't help but
it,
feel
it's
good.
it's hard to put into words because I know exactly what you mean. Because when I started doing it, and you literally watch these little beautiful plants, sprout up and they grow, and then you have sustenance from it.
Hmm.
It's hard to put into words, but there's a
Yeah.
psychological yeah. And God created it just the miracle of life right in front of you. I
Yeah.
don't mean to get cheesy
Yeah.
about it, but it's like it really is a profound thing when you watch it happen right in front of you. So for those that don't know what hydroponics is, can you briefly just explain what that is, and then let's talk about the stages of development that you create with the
Absolutely.
produce?
Simply, hydroponics is just using water as a conduit to bring nutrients to plants. Instead of using soil as the conduit to bring those nutrients to the plants, you're using water as a conduit to bring those nutrients to the plants. And so what you're doing is you're using water and you're enriching the water with with the exact level of nutrients that those plants need. And so what they do will do is as the water runs past their roots or touches their roots, they're taking out of the water exactly what they need. And what they don't need, they leave there. In traditional farming, when you're doing it outside, you spray water on the ground. There's runoff water, there's stuff that doesn't even get to the plants. But in hydroponics, you're giving them exactly what they need, and they're only taking what they need.
Mm.
And it's so in the system that we have, we use two different types of hydroponic systems. In our nursery, we use the ebb and flow model, which means the water comes in and it fills up this water trough and it feeds our seedlings from the bottom. And so they get what they need. And then once they're ready, we transplant them over into our cultivation area. And that's where we use the drip irrigation system. So pumps the water up, it comes through some pipes, PVC pipes, and it drips down onto some wicking strips that's held by foam with the seedling inside. And as the water goes through that wicking strip, the
So cool.
roots take exactly what they need. And what they don't take, it goes into a gutter, which goes right back to our reservoir to be reused and repurposed. And so we use maybe 5 gallons a day.
What? Like, come on, this is crazy. I mean, that is why are we not doing every street corner? You know what I mean? Should have one of these containers. It's beautiful. What an awesome
That's
system.
what I'm working on, brother. That's what I'm working on to get
Yeah.
these in. But the important thing is to doing it in areas that don't have access to it already.
Right. Right. Exactly.
That's the thing.
Yeah, we hear about these food deserts and how certain communities just have very limited access to high quality, nutritious stuff. And this is what blows my mind. Like, what's the cost of that for somebody to buy something from you? I mean, we're not talking necessarily, you don't have to break the bank to do this, right?
Mhm. Right. And you don't, and not at all, because it's so our food system is designed to make money, not to nourish and to sustain people. It's not the intention. The intention is not to feed. The intention is to make money.
Yeah. See,
And when
that's the
the
conspiracy theorist that I'm talking about. Let's go.
you know, and so when the intention is to make money, you don't bring these to those communities because you think those communities don't have the money to pay for what you want them to pay for it.
Right.
But in actuality, they still have to eat.
Right.
They're still spending money in places on food. Why not give them actually bring actual good food?
Well, and
But you don't do that because it's not.
they're spending money on health care too. So not only are they not getting, what they need, but then they get sick, which,
Yeah,
that to me is also part of the conspiracy is there's
yeah,
a relationship with the food producers and the pharmaceuticals. And it's like a self-fulfilling, sales
yeah.
cycle. So what are you producing in your
So
container?
we grow different types of lettuce, leafy greens, herbs, and root vegetables. We do some root vegetables like radishes, and these carrots called Atlas carrots that are like little balls of carrots that grow
Hmm.
on top of the plug instead of growing in the dirt. So they don't grow long; they grow like little radish balls.
And what are those called again?
It's Atlas carrots, so it's a
Atlas
type of
carrots.
carrot. Atlas, yeah. But we grow different types of red leaf lettuce, green leaf lettuce, butterheads. We have some beautiful oak leaf lettuce that we grow, red oak leaf. Red butterhead is always gorgeous. We do different types of leafy greens like collard greens, kale, different types of kale, bok choy, herbs like thyme and rosemary. We even grow lavender. We grow wasabi arugula, which is absolutely fantastic. It's
Wow.
arugula that tastes just like wasabi,
Huh.
which is pretty fantastic. The little they once you let them go to flower, the little flowers are so oh, so good, so good. Because I also come from I work in Asian cuisine and specifically Japanese sushi, and just to see that little flower on top
Uh,
of a piece of
mhm.
nigiri instead of putting wasabi on there, but that flower is the was
Mm,
you can't it's beautiful. So yeah, that's what we grow.
that's fantastic. Walk us through the stages that a plant will go through from a seed to full maturity.
Absolutely. So we do our seeding. We use these grow plugs that we get from a company that do they're biodegradable plugs that they're resistant, not completely resistant to mold, but we were using like a peat moss cocoa coir plug, and I had a really bad algae problem with using that. So we went to these different other plugs, and we've had a great. So put the seed in. We do germination. Our germination is between 3 and 5 days. And we average about a 98% germination rate.
Awesome.
So we plant 200 seeds. Of those 200 seeds, we are getting like 195
Wow.
that are great and that we can transplant. So that usually takes between 3 to 5, 5 to 7, depending. Sometimes herbs take a little bit longer to germinate. But we germinate them right inside the nursery, and when they're ready to go, we take about 3 to 5 days. We take the dome off, the humidity dome off, and we let them sit in there just to develop those really strong root systems. That usually takes about another week and a half to 2 weeks. So right now you're about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks max, and then we transplant them into our cultivation, and they stay in there for about another 3 to 4 weeks depending on how large we want to grow the heads, if we're
Mm,
growing heads. So from seed to harvest, it can anywhere from like 8 to 10 weeks.
okay. And are you producing all of those all at the same time, or do you go through cycles where you
We do a
produce?
cycle. We do a
Okay.
4-week cycle. So we will start our seedlings, and then by the end of say on Sunday we do our seedlings. By the following Sunday, we've already taken the humidity dome off for those seedlings, and we've already started the next round of seedlings.
Mm,
So that way, every week we have, ideally, if everything germinates, every week we have 200 in one cell. So, and we do
beautiful.
8 of those cells. So it's like 1,600 seedlings that we
Yeah,
have
that's so
that
cool,
we
man.
can.
And who do you sell to? Who's your customer?
We have a varied line. We sell to grocery stores, we sell to restaurants, we work with online farmers markets and sell directly to consumers. We have folks that'll stop by the farm and buy stuff from us. We also work with schools. I teach at actually my middle school that I went to when I was a kid back home in Fort Heights. I went back, and so I actually teach the kids they have a class there called Garden Club, and I teach them about hydroponics. And so I've worked with a couple of schools now and teaching the kids about growing their own food, teaching them about the plant life cycle. So that's another line. You talked about chickens earlier. I grow chickens. I raise chickens. I don't grow chickens. I raise chickens, and so we sell our eggs as well. So
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
And so you've been very kind on your social media channels and then in conversations that we've had previous to this one, where you're helping people, you're training people, educating
Mhm,
them if they want to do something similar. You've been very open and very generous with your advice and how to avoid certain things and the tips and
mhm.
tricks. For somebody that's interested in doing something like what you're doing, do you help them with like the full shipping container model, or do most people come to you and they want to learn how to, I've got an extra windowsill that gets some sunlight and I want to put up, 5 plants. What's the range of
Yes,
education that you
yes,
help people with?
yes, and it's kind of both. We've worked with folks that have like a countertop system, like those arrow gardens. And we actually are working with the school in Atlanta, Georgia right now, where we're going to go out and build out a whole system for them. They have an area where they have like this exposed wall. And so we're going to build out a whole like 16 panel
Awesome.
growing outdoor hydroponic system for them to teach the kids there. And so we help people, pick the right things to grow, you know, based on the system that they have. They have problems with growing certain things. We'll give them tips on how to, fight powdery mildew, for instance, naturally, where you can just literally use baking soda and water and some detergent and
Mm,
fight powdery mildew.
mm.
Or if you don't want to use, anything in your waters, how you can use vinegar to lower the pH in your water instead of using, some random chemical that you don't know what's in it. You can just use vinegar to raise. Or if you want to raise the pH, just put baking soda in your water because it raises your water to a more basic level. So
Hmm.
it's those little things that people I'm constantly so it's kind of runs the gambit for it, really.
I would love if our school system had all of these kids should be learning how to grow. And I mean,
Absolutely.
how amazing would it be if our kids were going to school and in addition to, reading and arithmetic, et cetera, they were learning how to actually grow their own food and create independence that way.
Yeah.
To me, that's so appealing.
Yeah.
That's so great that you're helping schools do that. Is it just you and your partner, or do you
It's,
have?
it's me and my partner.
That's incredible. Like this is what's so amazing to me about this model because you're able to yield so much for 5 gallons a day
Hmm.
and very little. I'm sure it's a lot of labor for you, but it's not like you have a team of people that are needed to produce this, which is fantastic. Can you walk us through some of the economics for somebody that might be interested in replicating this, or they're looking at this as a business opportunity? Can you give us a sense of the economics behind it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the comparison for specifically for the type of farm that I have. For the amount of money that you will spend on one piece of farm equipment, you can purchase a whole farm in this system that I use. And that is the farm instead of one piece of equipment. Because then with the one piece of equipment, you got land you got to buy, you got to do all the stuff that goes into, tilling that and making sure that that is fertile to grow. And
Mhm.
so for the price of one piece of farm equipment, you can buy the farm that I have that is it's the whole farm. There's
Mhm.
nothing else that you need. As far as the economics from a selling, running the business, it really depends on the line, how you want to approach your business. And because you have a limited space, like the amount of space and you know how much you can produce, and you really can't expand that one particular unit, and then it's being creative of trying to figure out other lines of business that you can approach. For instance, like working with the schools and helping them build out their hydroponic systems, but they will purchase our seedlings.
Mm.
And so that's a business. That's a line of business. We sell our seedlings across the country where people go on our website at dittofoods.com and they purchase seedlings on our website and we ship them to your home wherever we think we've shipped out to 28 states now. We've
Cool.
shipped seedlings out to and varied like to universities or to like Sarah down the road that's growing, food in her college dorm and she purchased seedlings. So and it really is how you structure your business depends on how you want to grow financially because
Hmm.
with the limited amount of space, you have to be creative.
Yeah. Well, how much is a container?
I don't where they are right now. I'm not sure because we purchased ours in 2020, so I'm sure the price has gone up. But it's less than 150,000.
So, what would you say would be the total startup capital one would need to do something like this?
Conservatively, 225.
So, to your point, with the cost of one farming
That's
equipment,
one.
I mean,
That's one farm equipment. That's one piece. That's one tractor.
yeah, we're looking at a fraction of the cost that it would take to find land, tractor, and then of course the labor and everything to produce
Right.
on multiple acres. That's very exciting. So for the seedlings that you sent out to people, are they is that just something, are they constantly buying seedlings, or do they buy the seedling and then they set up their own sort of hydroponic system and then they have a self-sustaining? Little.
Well, I mean, it's at some point you're going to have to harvest, and so we have folks that buy consistently from us. So once they've harvested, they've already purchased their next round of seedlings for us, so they have another basically a rotation of things growing. We have folks that have bought herbs that they're still harvesting from. I
Mm,
have thyme in there that we were cutting off that time for like 6, 7 months.
that's awesome.
And or we've had basil where we've, clipped off our basil for like 10, almost a year. We were clipping off one basil plant. And it's, controlled environment agriculture.
It's a
It's
beautiful
crazy.
thing. I have a basil plant in my kitchen window, and I bought it months ago, and it just continues to replenish itself. What advice do you have on picking? Because I know, if I understand correctly, there's ways that you can. How do you best, harvest that basil in a way that it continues to have most optimal production, if that makes sense?
Right. What you want to do is you want to get it to grow out instead of growing up because it grows into a bush. And so there's a way to cut. So as you are harvesting or pruning, there's a point where your plant will Y out. And so you want to cut that middle piece. And so now you've created two. And those two create two. And then those two
Uh,
create two. And so it continues to multiply. And so you just literally are just trimming at the base of it to keep the airflow around the root so you don't create any root rot. And then just keep it from flowering. You're always cutting in between that Y. And then you're
mhm.
creating, every time you do that, you're creating doubling what you have.
hmm I saw one of your videos on YouTube when you were talking about, I think it was, you mentioned like 5 things that the plants need from, obviously, light sourced, water. What do you recall what those, I forget what they were off the top of my head.
I don't know exactly what the context was, but obviously you need light, water, air, oxygen, CO2, and nutrients
And what
for
nutrients
this.
do you feed the water?
We do a three part nutrient solution. So we have part A, which is where it gets most of its nitrogen. And there's mostly it's nitrogen and a little bit of phosphorus in there. We use a proprietary blend that we use from Great Farms, actually. And then our part B is where it's getting most of its phosphorus and its potassium. And then we do a third part that is straight just nitrogen. So it's literally juicing up our plants to making sure that it's giving it there are reserves because plants will build up reserves so that they don't run out of what they need. And so when we
hmm
give them that third part, that nitrogen boost, they basically use that nitrogen boost as a reserve so they never run out of nitrogen.
Mm.
That's what I love. Again, the nerding out part. That's what I love about it. When you find out about it and you learn about the plant life cycle. It's very, very similar to how our bodies function
Yeah.
and how we structure it's structured and what we need to be. We need light, we need water, we need nutrients, we
Mhm.
need sustenance. So it's a lot of the same stuff.
What do you see as the future for your business? Do you have a vision? What's your 5-year vision?
We
What does it
do.
look like?
We do. We have 3 farms in 5 years. In addition to the 3 farms, we also have a grocery store concept that utilizes the shipping, repurposing the shipping containers that we're building out at some point. And we also have a laundromat concept. I grew up and my grandfather worked at a laundromat, so I grew up in a laundromat. And again, in communities like the one I grew up in, there's no laundromat. And a
Mm,
lot of people don't have washers and dryers in their homes, so they have to drive to the next town over to go to the laundromat, or they have to get on the bus with their clothes and go to the
mm,
laundromat. So the bigger vision is we are looking to create what I call an ecosystem of businesses, where we go into communities that need access to these particular resources, the farm, the grocery store, and the laundromat. And so we work in these communities to bring access to these communities, working with the municipalities, working with the community, and really putting the investment into communities that need somebody to invest in them so
mm,
that we can all stop talking about how they don't have because nobody's investing.
mm,
So it's great to stand back and talk about what they don't have and what they're not doing. Well, put some of your money into it.
hmm hmm What kind of impact has your business made in your local community, and what has that meant to you?
This is the emotional part. What it means because my community, the work, I want my community to be the model for all communities like it. And what that means is, as long if somebody invests the time, energy, and resources into it, it will be successful. It will be successful. But you know why? Because you're working towards the success of it. And what this has meant to me is I feel as though I am fulfilling my ancestors' dreams. I feel as though I am fulfilling my soul's purpose, and I'm focusing on my home community. I'm working with the schools, so teaching the kids about how to grow healthy and nutritious food and why it's important to eat healthy and nutritious food. Because we had a kid, it broke my heart. We were teaching him about strawberries and how the seeds of strawberries are on the outside, and he had never had a strawberry.
Whoa.
This was a seventh grader. He had
Wow.
never had a strawberry.
Wow, man. Wow.
So
Yeah.
like it just, I mean, like breaks my heart right now just thinking about it. And
Yeah.
so to me, that's why that's why I do what I do for the communities that I do it for, is because getting that knowledge young prevents future health problems
Mm-hmm.
that face my community. So
Mm-hmm.
teach them young on how food is medicine.
That is a message that I think cannot be amplified enough. God gives us the pharmacy. It's right there. It's right there in the ground. Uh,
And
that's amazing.
it blows my mind because when people go to produce pharmaceuticals, where do they get their inspiration?
Mm-hmm. We're
Nature.
modeling nature exactly, and not
That's where we
as
get
well,
them.
not as efficient. Nature, it's you're not going to win that one. Nature's always going to
No.
win.
Oh, she
Um,
shut us down for 2 years. So
right,
she shut
right.
our shit down for 2 years. So
It's almost it's like going back to this full circle on the conversation. It's like it really did force us to slow down and
mhm,
re-examine, like, what are we doing? But and it took us out of the rat race. It took us out of that, like you were saying, broke the cycle of just the
mhm,
monotonous, hey, I got to get up and do this and put on my suit and tie, blah blah.
mhm. And get
What a
in
beautiful
line and
gift.
wait in line, wait for the light to turn so that you can go and wait in line for the door to open. And it becomes this monotonous, trained way of living your life. And didn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. I so welcome the change of pace and to the pause, the reflection. What are we
Mhm.
really doing? What are we really consuming? And I think what you've created is beautiful, man. I wholeheartedly support your mission and your purpose. And it's just I had a feeling when I came across your stuff. I was like, there's something special about what you're up to. And specifically
I
you. And
appreciate that.
man, I'm so inspired by it. I hope that this conversation has inspired other people to
Absolutely.
examine what they're taking in, to also obviously check you out, dittofoods.com, and support your growth. And yeah, I think that the answer is staring us right in the face. And I think that you've got a great model and an example of what to do. So I appreciate you taking the time today and sharing your passion. Again, it's dittofoods.com, correct?
Dittofoods.com.
Fantastic, brother. Thank you
Thank you, Peter. I
again. And
appreciate it.
I'm sure your grandmother is very proud of you, bro.
Every day I thank her because she's making it all happen. She's making it all happen. So I
Uh,
appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Be safe.
you too, man. Thank you for listening to this episode of Wired for Impact. If you're interested in creating and expanding your impact, be sure to visit us online at impactnow.com.